let's call our coordinator for the Brazilian Agency for Industrial Development, ABDI, Susana von Mark. She has a master in administration by the Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul. That was in 1997. She has experience in area of administration of specific sectors, mostly in the following themes: innovation, industrial policy, innovation system, aeronautical sector, among others. She is carrying out her doctorate in the School of Administration of the Federal University of Bahia, and her theme is about the development of the capacity for innovation in small and medium-sized businesses in the aeronautical sector. But before, let me take the liberty of observing something. Is when our representative mentioned his difficulty of approving his regulation project for nanobiotechnology, and the difficulties of approval of regulation of this matter. Then we have Wiseman, Engelman, that is. He shows the cross-cut position that nanotechnology has, so it will be much more difficult because nanotechnology is vertical, it's only agriculture and stem cells. It's been very difficult in the past, but like he showed, I thought it was very interesting. He shows all the human activities are somehow touched by nanotechnology. So this across-the-board aspect became very clear. So good morning, all of you. I would ask for our speakers to come to the panel so that we can start our panel. I hope that this is maintained at 15 minutes. So let me ask you that the questions are not explanatory, but pragmatic and objective with a question mark at the end. Each one of you will have a couple of seconds to ask your question, and I'm going to have to apologize beforehand because I will have to cut you out if you do not maintain your question brief. I would ask you to direct your question to a specific member so that each one of you can write down your question, and we will answer at the end, and we'll conclude the debate this way. So please, Professor Paulo Lanari, and then if you can go ahead, Professor Paulo, please. So good morning, all of you. My question is for Dr. Luis Claudio from Anvisa about pesticides that I believe agricultural pesticides, I believe it's your area. It was reported here in Brazil that we do not register any pesticide with nanotechnology, nanocapsule, or whatever. So my question is, what does Anvisa will require when we have so that we can register a product of this type in Brazil? What is it needed? Professor Lanari, the majority of viewers, researchers, so I usually call every one of you as a professor. even though you're not sometimes. Two short questions. One to Luis Claudio. Um, it appears to me that you mentioned the coordination of the society through DECA, sector chambers. I would like to ask you if you have a provision for the technology with the coordination of the productive sector. What are the channels? Uh, who we should in touch? How can we coordinate this connection? There's a great expectations of the involvement of Anvisa in this process. And also I have a question for Dr. Priscilla, is that we have a strong cooperation with the INPI in terms of nanotechnological products, and we have developed a project that we present in the forum that's to make a kind of a warning, like you mentioned in your research, perhaps a greater ambition involving entities of the productive sector, the various industrial organizations. So I would like to know if you have this possibility in the horizon to coordinate your idea with the productive sector for a direct benefit of the society. And I want to congratulate Wilson and Alexei for their presentations, were very good. My name is Peter Schus. I was going to ask you exactly the same question.
And what about the industries? Any other question? Let's answer the questions, and then we'll see any other question that shows up. Let's start with Luis Claudio. Paulo, as I said, one of the things that we had difficulty in the Anvisa was to see if the products were with nanotechnology or not. Some companies say that they have it to kind of even to show off, and others don't hide it. So according to the toxic, one of the more complex procedures that we have is with agrotoxics or pesticides, because we want a complete dossier with chronicle data and all the data from laboratories so that we can assess it. Ana Maria is going to give a presentation about this toxicology analysis of Anvisa, but we don't incorporate it. We don't have products with nanotechnology in the agrotoxical area. The companies have to communicate everything in agrotoxics. Maybe they didn't communicate it if it's going to be used with transgenics or not. The ideas that we incorporated, and answering the question of João's question, I met you at the forum reunion. We are going to make an amplified reunion as if it were course training involving people from Unicino, Medici, who work with this to call the attention for these aspects that are happening, but the discussion is not coordinated yet in this Anvisa system. So if you go into other discussions that with patents, for example, Anvisa, if it approves with a product that another one had a patent before, this is very complicated. But this is in other areas. Anvisa is involved, but it doesn't have a decisive character with this. So the idea is to make this discussion, and in the assessment is to see how we're going to start working in the different areas. Anvisa is organized by product, not by process. Toxicology is not transversal. It is made in each one of the areas. This is established in the law. So this is how we do it internally. We articulate the different areas to see what is common, what is not common, what is specific, and what is in common. Develop access for all the areas at the same time. This is a discussion that we have to do. When I talked about PROREGI and other measures, we have to make a provision of the regulatory agenda, a term that is urgent for us to establish a regulation is that it should be implemented. Sometimes it is difficult when a theme is not based on a law to regulate it, so this might be included and not being because it wasn't discussed in a higher instance in the Congress, for example. So what we have to do is contribute with all these process of the Constitution and continue to working, and we are at the disposition of all. Priscila. Pass the floor to Priscila. According to the questions that were made. Obviously, we didn't talk about all the activities that the center where I belong has many activities. One of them is the Profinche, that it's the program of giving technological information with a contract with the companies, and also the project of a colleague that I have of Rafaela Guerrante. She went together with me to Sweden that is to improve this program, to also train the people, because sometimes people they receive technological information but they don't know what to do with it. So the idea is to make this program go through training. And what João commented was what we're going to call, what President has said, what we're going to call is technological observatory. Technological observatory. So we have a problem of not having many people to do a lot of work. So many people criticize the INPI because it delays and so is late. But we had in 2000 we had 2 biologists, but there have been from that time now we are increasing. We're having more people, but there is a long training time, and the tendencies. Somebody said that to strengthen the public institutions, and this is happening in INPI. Is there any other question? I would like to congratulate the table, and as Priscila said, that this has to, everybody has to get together afterwards and talk, because it's interested. There wasn't a dialogue between the entities that are represented here. Everything that depends of a law, of a Congress, of political sensitivity. So all these organs are here together in political decisions, but not isolated policies, governmental decisions of the state. We have representative fees. For this to happen, we need that the House, that the Senate have to be informed. They have to have an open dialogue. I think that the confusion here is who talks to who and who informs what to whom, how, and when. And so this is all are state organs, agencies. And Visa, if it, for example, approves a product that has a patent, don't you talk between each other to know if it doesn't Inmetro have a contact with Anvisa? I think that there's missing. There is an management problem here, because you have to be able to click on something and have a common chart where you can consult. So I would like to make a question to Wilson. That is a very closed sector of the lawyers. It is a very complicated field. What is the sensibility of our colleagues in the law for these issues that have been said here? Because it's not a money area. There are other areas of law that give an immediate feedback. But I would also like that other question that somebody else wants to make. Could you please say your name? Good morning to all. My name is Haroldo Nicolau Jr. I work with Nanogavia, Nanotechnology Sustainable in the PUC Rio. And I would like to ask Wilson, when is your book going to be available that you presented in the end? It will be, I think it's important now for us to have a base, especially for us of the academic milieu. Has it been released? And Lanari wants to make a question also. Wants to ask a question. Two questions. One is for Dr. Wilson, for him to comment this issue, the legal issue, the legislative hierarchy, and to know if we need a law for Anvisa. And also I would like to congratulate Dr. Priscilla, and also like her if there are entrepreneurial activities, if this everything, if the patents have been divulged, if she could give an idea of with the relationship with entities of companies. I want to say that we have to make a political assessment, that because we haven't had a regulation up to now. The deputy was the author of two tentatives to do this, two trials to do this, but he wasn't accepted by the government basis. The organs that give that help the government they were the ones they were against the regulation. So evidently, when Anvisa says and INP talks here, they manifest intentions, of institutional intentions of their workplaces, that this should advance and this should advance. But when you go to the government doesn't approve it. So this is my analysis of the process, and I'd like to know what our representative here in the government agrees or not. Richard would like to also make a question, ask a question. There's this other sir here. He would like to ask a question. What I understood by the explanation of the deputado, it wasn't the governor who did not agree with the project. The government has this concern about the regulation that has he also has the protection of the health ministry, and I'd like to comment also that we have three different powers: the legislative, the executive power, and the judiciary power. So it is in the legislative one who is going to make the law, and if this doesn't happen, the governance will be fragilized. So we have to have a law that gives us legal security, so that the regulatory organisms can do what they have to do. This is only to comment something here. I would pass to Richard here and the last question, and ask the floor to answer, and then we'll go on to the next panel. I want to make a suggestion. I am from the Paulo here. In 2004, they asked me, have you talked about nanotechnology? In 2004, I said, yes, I use nanotechnological products in 2004. So I think that there's a barrier. I am a retired researcher, and I was always, and there is a barrier between there's a big barrier with the communication media. I talked about it with Luisa Assis, and they have talked about nanotechnology. Susana Singer, who is the ombudsman of the Folha de São Paulo, that is a newspaper of the future, who announces nanotechnology as something that is exotic. My suggestion is that in this seminar we could make a document and give it here to our government colleague who's here to take it, because I think that there are many organs here which are involved, and universities, and Anvisa in Metro, and all this doesn't evolve because we need a law. So we could write a simple document here between us, and to say that there was a seminar of the Fiocruz with a very with the specialists representing this knowledge, and this could all be said. I would like to say about two questions with the transversality of nanotechnology. Brazil counts with regulations. It is this difficults the process of building a law, a general law that contemplates all these dimensions, because what specifically in these essays that we see, that what has to be improved and adequated. So this can be a very interesting work that for us to advance in the issues of nanotechnology. More in general, we need this practical work that we can upon them create a work on the legal part. I don't know what it would called, and we could envy this to different agencies for them to present different views on how to improve. So this could be an issue that could be placed in a document that could be sent for debate. I would like to ask them to conclude for us not to delay the next panel. Answering the question of the Doutora Dana, law is not very sensitive to this right now, this legal part. They're still not very sensitive towards this. I think we really have to show to this area of knowledge that nanotechnologies are here, and that that law has to be part of this revolution. I think there is also a big financial implication. There is a work to be done, but I think that it is also a field that has to be called the attention to. There will be the launching of this book in the evening, and Dr. João Lanari talks about the constitutional hierarchy. We have the right we're very much linked to the Constitution, and we have to use in this the interpretation and creativity, not only in the scientific area but also in the humanistic one, that from what is in the Constitution onwards, we could elaborate these minimal landmarks for Anvisa, that there isn't a prohibition for this. So I think this is an issue for all in citizenship, not only for the legal rights, but it's also because of the Constitution that is above any other, above the law, because it gives us the guidelines. If we respect that, we can build norms and regulations. So, and this has to be respected. So any text that you do, it will be passed through the to be inconstitutionalized. So with these parameters and the principles that we have there, build resolutions, and also this adaptation that could be done, respecting the limitations. That is the issue of the e-metro. It's not just doing any regulation on the paper, that in practice you cannot effectively do. I think that Pedro said the issue is the fragilization. In the case of the transgenics, we operated judicially, because sometimes the judge would say do it, other times he would say don't do it. When you have a law, it is much clearer for everybody and for the judge himself to do this. So we have been used creativity all the time, because what we have to understand that when we are in a more stable environment, it's easy. But when we have a decision that is more in a routine assessment, this is fragilized. So I think it is important for us to have legislation and laws. Commenting two things that what the doctor said. I think that it is very important that the role of the organized society, that it is to provoke the institutions to talk between them, because the institutions are made by people, and so we will have to talk about it if we don't have the issue that we want to discuss. We just have to talk between us. So here. This is our government representative who's going to answer. When we have a new area and the legislator worked in this part, they hadn't thought of such a new area as with the size of the nano. And I think that we need a new appropriate legislation. And a regulatory mark. This is what we tried to do when we presented the project in the government representative. So we presented a base for debate that did not happen, because inside the ministers there are dedicated people who work with this theme. The political orientation for the ministry was of not regulating it. So there wasn't a lobby as there was with transgenics and the law of biosecurity, where people who had been working with multinationals, that they made a strong lobby, because I even called it the Monsanto Lei, because they were the ones who determined what could apply and what could not apply. So the three commissions that they say that the business sector and the government, they talk together, and they say that there is not a consensus to regulate to regulate through the law what a product that is not known gives an uncertainty for the investors. So they're thinking about the market and not about society and people. So it would be to put an obstacle in their new technologies when they were newborn. So this is an analysis on the point of view of the market that was manifested. It was Luiz Erundina, who is from the PSSB, who is he is of the party of the Minister of the Science and Technology. She makes the same analysis. She makes the same report. There is no interest in regulating this yet. So what we have to do, we have to insist, because we will have to make this regulation at some time. I talked about with the representative Zekia Sarney, and we're going to start a public audition to discuss this and represent this project. And I agree, Wilson, that there should be an integration between what the legislator is thinking and what the executive is thinking also. What the legislator is thinking is not the same of what is depending on what the executive part is thinking. This integration is important for the government to have a legal base and can manifest, and also involving the society. So this is, Tanya, this is what I wanted to say. With the interest of those who are working in the government, the obligation of the Federal Congress and to regulate is not to create difficulties for the market or for the industry, but it's to guarantee that this new world of nanotechnology would exist for everybody and for the benefit of all and of society.
I just want to complement this, through my presentation. I just tried to show you that regulation is not a competitiveness barrier. On the opposite, when you regulate, it becomes an incentive to competitiveness, especially in the nanotechnology area. An example, because we already seen in these meetings of regulatory milestones, the industry lost a contract because it was to place nanoparticles in fabrics. But why didn't it happen? Because we didn't have money for the supplier. But the biggest danger, the problem, it was like closed particles with the properties that had not been proved. Because see, you know, if we don't regulate, we're gonna have a much larger loss. So that's my personal opinion I would like to add. We have a sequence that's absolutely correct. So this initiative, the Ministry of Development to create this forum, I believe, it's not one of the few, it's the only initiative to anticipate the problem. We do not have a problem right now, but those of us who are specialists, and Dr. Wilson showed that very clearly, that the only thing we can avoid is death. We cannot avoid is death and the complement taxes. The two things we cannot avoid. The rest, it's up to us. So we have to discuss. That's why I have the forum. The society must express its opinion, has to advocate without hurry, because many mistakes can be committed. So the individual attitudes, I'm talking about the regulatory agencies, I'm talking about Metro, of course, because I work there. The evaluation. So nobody will stop Metro from going, because we have voluntary programs. Sometimes the manufacturer wants us to certify. So please confirm that we do have the quality the public demands. So individual attitudes, nobody stops the emitter from going to the market to verify a product and to tell society later, look people, according to our rules, these products do not conform. It is dangerous. So we have to manage to get to that degree of excellence. We cannot be the last. We have to be the first ones to discover, the first one to assess, the first one to create a regulatory scheme. This is one of the greatest challenges we have nowadays. I'd like to thank you, all of you, that you gave me this difficult mission to carry out a panel of this nature in 15 minutes. Of course, we went over our time, so I have 5 minutes for a coffee break. Please return in 5 minutes for the next panel in 5. Thank you.